Us live in the Trustmark studios pertaining to the Biden wish to do away with meat. James in Clarksdale, I feel guilty. I just bought a half a steer. What do I do? I don't know. I mean, James, I'd do the biblical thing and share the ribs with your wife. I think that's what I would do. In the studio, it is the one and only Tim Moore, President and CEO of Mississippi Hospital Association. Mentioned to you, I said after the session, you think things would calm down a little bit, but
I don't think that's coming yet.
You're kind of responsible for keeping it alive, though.
Well, we got to be doing something.
Somebody else on Twitter was mentioning to me, what did we have any information as far as the state Supreme Court? I mentioned that a little bit earlier. No concrete information. I think just process of elimination, you would think that this would be the week.
I think that's certainly. I can't comment on it. I have no firsthand knowledge, but I would think that because of all that has to be done to prepare for it, they'll get an answer out relatively quickly.
Probably this week. We'll see what happens.
I think you're right.
All right, where do we begin? Let's start at the beginning. You have decided to, and when I say you, it's a conglomeration of different people. I would imagine the folks of the Hospital Association and others.
Well, it's a large group, Paul. It's not the Mississippi Hospital Association. It's Healthcare for Mississippi, which is a group of many associations that have come together and decided that it's time to take action after we've been wrestling with it for a decade.
They all agreed to do this on the initiative basis.
That's correct.
Okay.
Well, and the reason for that is because the legislature's had over 10 years to actually take action on it, one way or the other. Yeah. And it's time just to let the people decide if it needs to happen or not.
Was the Hospital Association for or against the medical marijuana initiative?
That's a tricky question because when it's used as medical marijuana, yes, we're very supportive of that. Mm-hmm. It's a drug like any other. The way it has been laid out, no, we're not.
So the initiative process kind of overtook the need in a way, and it drove the bus.
I'm going to go back to the legislature could have taken action and done it more appropriately.
So, but does that justify what's happening as far as the consequences that putting that in the Constitution?
I don't know.
Does that worry you about some of the things that will happen as far as
it does.
Because it is?
It does. Of course,
it's not retroactive. I mean,
no, it's not. It's a major feat to go back and undo.
So you're not worried about any of the consequences if this should be adopted in the Constitution as far as
the expansion?
Medicaid?
No.
Yeah. Why not?
Well, because it's time that we have walked away for so long. There's been numerous options for both the state leadership and the legislature to take action and to move forward with some plan. And that has not happened. So now it's time to take it to the people. I think the last time that the language was changed for the ballot initiative was back in 95. Mm-hmm. And I talked to some of the legislators that were in place at that time, and, of course, they had concerns about that being in there. However, they thought also that if the legislature's not taking action on an issue for whatever reason, the people should have a right to step forward and let their voice be heard.
Well, the people do have. Well, there are two things here, and again, Tim Moore is my guest, President, CEO of Mississippi Hospital Association. Would you agree, Tim, that there are two things here? They have a right to do it, whether it's a good idea or not.
Well, no, that's true.
Is another subject altogether.
Sure.
One of the parts of the statement that you guys have put into this initiative that apparently is cleared by the Secretary of State's office?
It has been.
Revenue required to implement the measure. The vast majority of the cost of the program under this measure will be financed using federal funding. Does that mean if it passes and the people sign on to it, and it's not the major part, it will negate the how does that negate the constitutional amendment that passed or the constitutional initiative? In other words, you say in here the vast majority of this program,
right, 90%.
Under the measure, 90% of the cost of the Medicaid expansion, and this will be federal dollars. Mm-hmm. Does that mean, is there somewhere in here a clawback clause or something that says this initiative is negated and dead because it's not 90%?
No, sir.
Well, then who's going to pay the rest of it if the government says after 90% it's not, it's going to be 40%, and they may come back and say, I'm sorry now, you're weaned, you got to pay the whole cost.
Right.
So now you're saying that the initiative still is in place constitutionally.
The initiative will be in place constitutionally until action is taken to remove it, regardless of what happens.
So we'd have to go back and have.
You could have a legislative.
You could
ballot
possibly
initiative.
have half the people of Mississippi, and that might correspond to half the voters, would have to say, I'm going to go to the polls and I'm going to vote to kill my medical ability to pay.
You could. Yeah, it wouldn't be half, but yeah, you could have.
Well, I mean, you got 720 as far as adults are concerned. You've got
well, it
700.
doesn't affect them.
720.
Wouldn't affect them at all.
Wouldn't affect adults.
Wouldn't affect the traditional Medicaid patient. That stays the same. You know, we talked about that. Johnson
but
actually
I'm saying
signed
you got
it.
720,000 who
On
are on
Medicaid.
Medicaid now.
Correct. On Medicaid.
And then you've expanded another 300,000.
Right. But it doesn't affect, this initiative does not affect the traditional Medicaid.
Mm-hmm.
This is only the new Medicaid. There's been a lot of confusion, seems like, about that.
Well, I understand, but the entire universe of the voters would go vote for this, though, and it would cut those people off.
I don't know.
Okay,
I couldn't say that.
So in SFY 2023, the initiative would draw at least $907 million in new federal funding and extend health care coverage to more than 200,000 currently uninsured Mississippians.
Correct.
How do you put that in the Constitution?
You don't. I mean, that's just part of the financial statement that's there.
So this is not going to be on the ballot then?
It will not. Title.
What would be on the ballot? Just the title?
Just the title.
So it's kind of like medical marijuana. All the ins and outs would not be.
That's correct.
Visible.
Now you can get it. You can get it through the Secretary of State's office, and of course there'll be a summary.
Is this what we can get?
Initiative.
This is what you can get.
You can get
this.
That.
Is the breadth of
the whole thing.
Of the whole thing.
You know, and you know, we've talked about. I know Commissioner Cheney was with you last week, and there were some comments made about the Hospital Association was going after trying to get the Mississippi Cares or Mississippi True back in and put it this way. It's not in there. There's nothing in there about the Hospital Association. You can't do that. You can't constitutionalize all of those issues. Just like we were talking about the money side of it, that goes too far. That's up to the legislature to determine how they're going to do that. But if you look, the fiscal note there, it pays for itself, period, all the way through.
When it stops paying it for itself, then that means the taxpayers of the state of Mississippi are going to have to take money out of the general fund and pay for it, though.
Yeah, well, somebody will have to pay for it.
Which you have any
Paul,
idea?
Let's talk about that. Let's go back. We just mentioned that in '65, Johnson signed the Medicaid bill. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
It took Mississippi 4 years to decide. Okay, we're going to take part of this. But the number one argument was, what if somebody stops funding this? What if the government quits sending us money? Well, 51 years later, we're using the same poor argument that the federal government is going to stop funding something that they're not. They're not going to take it away. Governor Reeves, I think, said the other day on the show that you can't take something away from somebody once they have it. Well, the federal government's not going to do that either. It's the same thing.
But I understand that. But in the same concept of this, if you do math, and I know math may be racist to you.
It could be.
You got to appreciate that. But in the same respect, you have to also understand from the days of Johnson to now, we have millions and millions and millions more and trillions of trillions of dollars. Well, I don't want to overdo that, but our expenses have gone up and up and up.
Sure.
Take the people in the state of Mississippi. Have they become just the healthiest people in the world since a vast majority of our poor people are on Medicaid? Have they been any healthier?
You know, you got to hope so.
Well, you got to hope so, but somebody's got to pay for that hope.
Because a lot of them may be dead if that were not the case. But, you know, if you look at that over the last decade, Paul, the Medicaid cost of the state's actually gone down. And it has not gone down as a result of managed care. It's gone down as a result of the federal government putting more money in.
I can't verify that.
I can give you the report.
Some of the reasons that we had face-to-face, some of the things that we've done on a statewide basis through the Medicaid office here in the agency has been more restrictive to clarify or to quantify these people. Wouldn't you agree with that?
That they've done a better job
of quantifying
the eligibility?
Yeah.
Yes, I would. They've done a really good job of that. Really good job.
I'm trying to get onto these numbers, too. When in this constitutional initiative, if it passes, it becomes part of the Constitution. Mm-hmm. Nobody, I don't care if you're chairman of House Appropriations, chairman of Senate Appropriations, you're the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker, nobody can do anything about this because it would draw down at least $907 million. So what happens if more money comes in? We could take that, but if less comes in, we've got to fill that till all the way up to $907 million. Yeah. That's the magic for years and years and years to come.
Right. But you're going back, Paul, to if they quit funding it.
Yeah.
And there's no history of that. There's nothing to base that on.
Well, there's no history of a lot of things, but